Have you ever considered that you might be an empath? Have you heard that word before? Being an empath is different than being empathetic. Being empathetic means you can understand and relate to other people's feelings. But being an empath means that you feel the emotions of other people so deeply. You experience them as your own. It's like you take on their feelings. In case you're not sure, or even just to validate your experience if you feel that's necessary, I have a 20-question test here to find out if you're an empath. And it's very simple. So, are you curious? Okay. I'm going to ask you the questions, and I need you to keep track of how many questions you say yes to. Your yeses will determine the degree to which you are an empath. So please answer each question as honestly as you can. If it describes you, say yes and keep count. Please keep count. I will be circling your yeses or no's with a pencil as I go. Are you ready to begin? Beautiful. All right. The first question is, have you been labeled as overly sensitive, shy, or introverted? Remember, count your yeses. So if this describes you, say yes. Have you been labeled as overly sensitive, shy, or introverted? Yes or no? Question number 2. Do you frequently get overwhelmed or anxious? Do arguments or yelling make you feel sick? Do you often feel like you don't fit in? Are you drained by crowds and need alone time to revive yourself? Are you overstimulated by noise, odors, or non-stop talkers? Do you have chemical sensitivities or can't tolerate scratchy clothes? Do you prefer to take your car places so you can leave early if you need to? Provided you have one. Do you overeat to cope with stress? Are you afraid of being suffocated by intimate relationships? Do you startle easily? Do you react strongly to caffeine or medications? Do you have a low pain threshold? Do you tend to socially isolate? Do you absorb other people's stress, emotions, and symptoms? Are you overwhelmed by multitasking and prefer to do one thing at a time? Do you replenish yourself in nature? Do you need a long time to recuperate after being with difficult people or energy vampires? Do you feel better in small cities or the country than in large cities? Do you prefer one-to-one interactions or small groups rather than large gatherings? Do you have your total number of yeses? Let's calculate your results. If you answered yes to 1 to 5 questions, you are a slight empath. If you answered yes to 6 to 10 questions, you have some empathic tendencies. If you answered yes to 11 to 15 questions, you are strongly empathic. And if you answered yes to more than 15 questions, you are a full-blown empath. So what does this reveal about you? The more of an empath you are, the more sensitive you are to your surroundings. You might compare it to moving through the world, feeling like everything is being amplified under a microscope, which makes it easy to reach supreme burnout when spending time in crowds or busy places. You are naturally going to gravitate toward isolation, to disconnect from all that energy, to recharge and reset. This is why you often feel drawn to spend time in nature or the wilderness, where there are little to no people or conflicting frequencies. Nature is a safe space to replenish. Because you effortlessly soak up the emotions of other people, you often lose yourself in them, to the point of not knowing where you end and someone else begins. It might be easy for you to place your full focus on helping someone feel better, because on an unconscious level, it seems like when they feel better, you will feel better. This can make it a real struggle to set boundaries and prioritize your own needs, and it makes you extremely susceptible to experiencing emotional fatigue and stress. The benefit of being extremely in touch with your feelings is a heightened sense of creativity. Since you feel everything, you become easily inspired by works of art, whether it's music, physical art, writing, film, dance. The point is you're easily moved. You can tune into and sense the deeper meaning behind works of art. This exchange almost feels like a secret language, because there are no words between you and the art. It just feels. This inherent understanding even allows you to express more complex thoughts and emotions through your own creations. If you haven't already, I strongly encourage you to start creating, because it is the perfect outlet for channeling whatever you might be going through on your empath journey. Now, to really put this to the test and validate your inner empath, I'm going to give you 5 open-ended scenarios. As you hear each one, I want you to imagine what the experience would be like for you. How would you respond if you were in the situation? Okay. Our first scenario is, your friend tells you that they feel like they're constantly failing at work, despite putting in long hours and trying their best. As an empath, a common response would be to feel a sense of frustration or sadness alongside your friend, while intuitively feeling the emotional toll and deep pain their feelings of inadequacy has on them. There might be an immediate urge to comfort and reassure your friend too. Empaths feel a lot. Alright, scenario 2. Your family member has been in bed for days. They seem withdrawn and sad, but they haven't told you what's going on. What would that be like for you to experience? How would you respond? What would you respond? Here's the empath response. You would sense the emotional energy surrounding your family member and feel the urge to reach out. You would continue feeling concerned or anxious about the situation and want to help even if you were unsure how. Scenario 3. Your partner is quiet after a disagreement. They seem withdrawn. They haven't said much, but you can tell something is bothering them. How would you experience that situation? What would you do? How would it feel? What would it be like to experience that? The empath response is to pick up on your partner's discomfort and feel a sense of internal heaviness from the conflict. You instinctively feel pulled to fix the situation. You respect your partner's need for space, but you say something like, I can feel that something's off. I don't want to rush you, but I'm here when you're ready to talk. Scenario 4. You're at a social gathering, and someone is standing alone, looking uncomfortable and out of place. They haven't spoken to anyone. What would you do in this situation? What would you do if you saw that happening? What would you do in this situation? As an empath, you sense their discomfort and isolation, and even feel uneasy and uncomfortable in response. You feel an instinctive desire to make that person feel safe and included. You might gently invite them to join your group or go over and say hello. Scenario 5. Your friend confides that they are feeling lonely despite having a lot of people around them, and they're not sure how to break the feeling of isolation. What would that be like in your experience if they told you that? How would you feel? How would you respond if they told you that? As an empath, you deeply resonate with their loneliness and potentially feel your own experiences of isolation being amplified. You sense the depth of your friend's pain and offer emotional comfort, warmth, and understanding, telling them that you're there for them and you will do whatever you can to make them feel seen and heard. So, how did you feel in each scenario? Did you resonate with the responses? Of course, this all fluctuates based on where you fall on the empath scale. And it might also still be difficult for you to accept that you're an empath. It's possible that you've always felt different from the people around you, like you had different needs, but you didn't want to be a burden, so you forced yourself to adapt. That is completely normal. However, the more you lean into and embrace this aspect of yourself, the more you'll learn how to navigate it. And that leads to richer, deeper relationships with friends, family, partners, plus those gut feelings. You can trust them. They're valid. You should listen to them when making your decisions. It's another secret language that will help you move through life, avoiding obstacles. But how did you become an empath in the first place? Since science is still officially on the fence about this, we don't know for sure. But there are a few popular ideas behind what might cause it. The leading research suggests there are mirror neurons in our brain, and those help us to learn by imitating the behavior of other people we observe. So as an empath, you simulate other people's emotions as if you were experiencing them directly. Another idea is that it's genetics and transferred from your lineage to you. Or it might be rooted in childhood trauma. If you experienced emotional or physical abuse, or were raised by a narcissistic parent, or a parent struggling with depression or addiction, this could cause you to become an empath. If you are an empath, what can you do to improve your quality of life? Let's bring it back to setting those boundaries. Have you ever made a list of situations or environments that you've noticed drain your energy? Places or people that just exhaust you? This is a good place to start. The next step is to start saying no to those places and people. It can be difficult, but you need to honor and prioritize yourself. You come first. Your health comes first. Your energy comes first. And I know you're used to wanting to help other people. You're used to saying yes, but if it's draining you, it's not meant for you. So this is a sign to start practicing your assertiveness. When you do get overwhelmed and head back into your hole, there are mindfulness practices that can help you manage your emotions instead of getting lost in them and spiraling out. The easiest way to do this is by setting a timer for 15 minutes and by doing diaphragmatic breathing. That's where you put your hand on your stomach and you place all your attention on the rise and fall of your stomach as you breathe in and out. You just keep bringing your attention back to the breath, just the breath, and that rise and fall. And once you get used to that, you can start intentionally relaxing your groin and stomach, chest and rib cage. This simple practice can really make you snap out of it and reset fast. You can also start doing body scans. This is where you check in with every part of your body, from your toes to your head. And part by part, you notice how you feel. If there's any tightness, any pain, any sensations. Maybe there are colors, sometimes patterns, sometimes memories. But moving up your body, moving back down your body, and just being there for it. Listening to whatever it wants to tell you. My highest hope is that by participating in this test and the scenarios, you have gained a deeper understanding about what it's like to be an empath. And if you've realized that you are one, that it brings tremendous relief to know that you're not alone. The way you process reality is not weird. Everyone moves through life differently, and at times we're trained to believe a certain way of seeing and experiencing things is the way, but it's not. So feel your feels, know that it's a gift, and stay true to you. What do you say we do a quick check-in to assess your emotional maturity? And I'm going to stop you right there. Your age has no bearing on this. You could be in your 80s with the emotional maturity of a tween, and vice versa. What's awesome about this is we only need one question. I want you to tell me how you would respond in this situation. Think of one of the closest people to you, someone you confide in and rely on. It could be a best friend, a partner, maybe a parent. When this person fails to meet your expectations, or they act in a way you don't like, or they do something that makes you really upset, how do you typically respond to them? I have 3 options for you, and I want you to score them between 1 and 5, with 5 meaning it's your go-to response, and 1 meaning you don't respond that way at all. Okay? Alright. The first response is to grow distant. You want to feel like you're in control of the situation. The last thing you want is for the other person to think they have some sort of power over you. So, you take some space. You play it cool. You pretend nothing's wrong. You might even play it off with a sarcastic joke. Or you might create a sense of distance by keeping every interaction with them short and closed off. Does this sound like you? If this is your go-to response, give yourself a 5. If you respond like this more often than not, give yourself a 4. If you occasionally respond like this, give yourself a 3. If you don't often respond like this, give yourself a 2. And if you never respond like this, give yourself a 1. Now, the second response is to mope. You show the other person you're extremely upset, but you don't tell them what's wrong. It feels like a blow to your ego, and you're not about to admit that you feel knocked down. Instead, you expect the other person to use their intuition to decipher what they did wrong, apologize, and make amends. Does moping sound like something you do? If it does, give yourself a 5. If it does not, give yourself a 1. And if it falls in between, score it accordingly. And the third response is to freak out. I mean, get furious. To the other person, your anger can seem fierce and overwhelming, but really, it's a sign that deep down inside, you feel powerless, lost, and vulnerable. You try to cope with this discomfort by lashing out at them, raising your voice, slinging insults, slamming, kicking, or breaking things, laying on the blame, or exaggerating the situation. Does this sound like something you do? If it does, give yourself a 5. If it does not, give yourself a 1. And if it falls in between, accordingly. Distance, moping, and freakouts are all signs of emotionally immature behavior. If you scored closer to 5 in any of these areas, you have not yet matured emotionally. But you can, and here are 3 ways how. First off, communicate how you feel. It's okay to feel everything that you're feeling. It does not make you weak. Be brave enough to share with the other person how and why you feel hurt. Number 2, let your guard down. Open up. When you emotionally mature, you understand that forming close connections can lead to getting hurt. You accept that, and you remain fearless when it comes to being vulnerable and asking for support. You know it's okay to show your emotions, even your tears, and that you deserve to be with someone who is there for you and handles those feelings with care. Number 3, maintain your composure. Take some deep breaths. A balanced perspective will let you navigate tricky situations with grace. You can always hand someone's ass to them down the line. But instead of immediately jumping to conclusions, hear the other person out before you decide to react. And remember, not everyone is out to get you. There's nothing to be embarrassed about if you are not totally emotionally mature yet. Emotional maturity has to be modeled for you when you're a child. And if it's not, then it's something you have to figure out as an adult. By consistently communicating your feelings, accepting vulnerability, and maintaining your composure, you will navigate sticky situations cool as a cucumber in no time. All my love to you, and good luck on your journey. If getting what you wanted meant bending the rules, or even bending a person or two to your will, how far would you actually go? Psychologists have been trying to measure that for years. They have a name for the darker corners of our personality, the dark triad. The dark triad. It's made up of 3 traits that sound like the lineup of a particularly dramatic reality show. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. The dark triad isn't a pop psych buzzword from a self-help TikTok. Versions of the test, which we are about to take, are actually used by law enforcement, psychologists, even major companies. People with high dark triad scores statistically more likely to break rules, stir chaos, or exploit others, but here's the plot twist. They're also more likely to rise into leadership positions, command attention, and attract partners with ease. Hey, baby. So, where do you fall on the dark triad? Are you sure you want to know? Because we can find out right now. You want to? Here's how we're going to do it. I have 36 statements for you, and they are split into 3 rounds of 12. Each round is focused on one part of the triad, and afterward, you will learn where you land on all 3. So while you can, just lay back and listen. If you want to know what your score is by the end, you need to keep track. On paper, your notes app, in your head. But for each statement that you hear, you're going to need to give yourself 0 points if you disagree, 5 if you're neutral, and 10 if you agree. That is 0 if you disagree, 5 if you're neutral, and 10 if you agree. By the end, you'll know whether you're mostly harmless with a few spicy edges, or the kind of person that Netflix would feature in a charming but dangerous documentary. Either way, welcome to the darker side of the personality. So let's see what's hiding under that hood. Starting with round one. Round one, statement one. And statement one is, you think very highly of yourself. You see yourself as the main character. Remember, give yourself 0 if you disagree, 5 if you're neutral, and 10 if you agree. Do you see yourself as the main character? Statement 2. You think mostly about yourself, and you tend to make everything about you. 0 if you disagree, 5 if you're neutral, 10 if you agree. Statement 3. You deserve to have great recognition, acknowledgement, and success. Statement 4. Others should pay special attention to you. Statement 5. You often see your role or your impact as bigger than it may be. Statement 6. You tend to daydream about being widely admired or celebrated. Statement 7. You feel more special or talented than others. Statement 8. You are better in general than others. Statement 9. You are motivated to make friends with famous people. Statement 10. You expect special favors from others. Statement 11. You want others to admire you. Statement 12. You dominate social situations. And that marks the end of round 1. We are now ending round 1 and entering round 2. Round 2, statement 13. And statement 13 is, you mislead people so you can look better in their eyes. Once again, 0 if you disagree, 5 if you're neutral, 10 if you agree. Statement 14. You keep track of sensitive information that can be used to hurt people at a later time. Statement 15. You avoid direct conflict with people who may be useful to you in the future. Statement 16. You enjoy picking on or bullying losers. Statement 17. You can't stand people who can't control their emotions. Statement 18. You do what you want and you do not feel particularly obliged to anyone. Statement 19. You tend to judge people who reveal too much about themselves. Statement 20. You use lies to get your way. Statement 21. You don't place much value on whether your actions are considered moral. Statement 22. You use flattery and compliments as a tool to influence others. Statement 23. Getting ahead in the world is more important than being ethical. Statement 24. Most people are lazy and don't work hard unless they have to. And that marks the end of round 2. We are now ending round 2 and entering round 3. Round 3, statement 25. And statement 25 is: you often lack remorse or guilt, shame, regret for something that you've done. Statement 26. You are not as upset as others when someone dies. Statement 27. Not all people are deserving of basic respect. Statement 28. If you can get away with something illegal, you will. Statement 29. You enjoy taking risks, even when they can get you into trouble. Statement 30. You have been in trouble with the law. Statement 31. You get moods where you act on a whim, thinking little of the consequences or the risk. Statement 32. You have often been called insensitive. Statement 33. You are cynical. Statement 34. You easily lose your temper. Statement 35. You don't have the best relationship with your family. Statement 36. You rarely feel compassion for people who are suffering. And that is the end of round 3. We are now ending round 3. Adding up your total for round 3. And by now, you should have 3 separate totals, 1 for each round, with a maximum of 120 points per round. So let's start with the first round. The first round focused on narcissism. If you scored below 40, congratulations. You're basically immune to main character syndrome. If you're between 40 and 80, you're rocking a healthy level of self-confidence. And if you scored above 80, well, let's just say the world is probably very aware of your presence because you make sure of it. But before you spiral or start pricing out marble statues of yourself, dark Triad traits are not inherently evil. Remember that, okay? They're like fire. They can burn down a house or they can keep you warm. And people high in these traits often radiate charisma, are extremely successful, negotiate brilliantly, and influence others. So if you scored high here, the challenge is not to suppress it. It's to learn how to aim that intensity towards something bigger than yourself. Something like your family, your community, or greater causes that you care about. So let's talk about what narcissism actually is, okay? At its core, narcissism is a personality trait that's built on vanity, self-importance, entitlement, dominance, a craving for admiration, basically the psychological equivalent of insisting on the front camera. People high in narcissism believe they deserve more than others because they see themselves as more deserving. The name comes from Narcissus, a character from Roman poetry who famously fell in love with his own reflection, which honestly is a mood, but also a warning. Narcissists are deeply invested in their own image, and they work very hard to get others to admire them and to maintain that shiny, larger-than-life version of themselves that they want the world to see. Because of that, they often come across as magnetic, charming, and confident, at least at first. The catch is their intense focus on self-image can make it very hard to form deep, genuine connections. Empathy often takes a backseat, and interest in others can feel like an afterthought. So, if your narcissism score was high, the work isn't about shame, it's just about awareness. That same fire that fuels self-adoration can also light the way for leadership, light the way for creativity, light the way for vision. It just depends on how you use it. And now we arrive at round 2, Machiavellianism, the part of the dark triad that is less about selfies and more about strategy. If narcissism is the look at me energy, Machiavellianism is the I already know what move you'll make 3 turns from now energy. It's the trait that's defined by manipulation, cynicism, and a by whatever means necessary approach to getting what you want. The name comes from Niccolo Machiavelli, a Renaissance political philosopher who argued that deception wasn't just acceptable for leaders, it was wise. His reasoning: people lie, politics gets messy. If you want to win, you'd better know how to play the game. People who score above 80 in Machiavellianism share a few signature traits. They're strategic, they're calculating, usually they're 2 steps ahead. They see people less as companions and more as pieces on a board. And they have a remarkable ability to detach from morality when it gets in the way of things. While the rest of us might agonize over whether something's right or wrong, a high Mac individual is asking a different question entirely, and that's, does it work? That's not to say every high score here is someone plotting a coup. In fact, Machiavellianism traits can look like patience, diplomacy, and long-term thinking when they're used wisely. These are the people who can negotiate impossible deals, stay calm under pressure, and see the solutions that no one else does, because they're not distracted by sentimentality or social niceties. But if your score here was high, it is worth reflecting. Are you playing the game to win at all costs, or are you playing to build something that is worth winning? That question is often the difference between a master negotiator and a master manipulator. And finally, we come to round 3, psychopathy, the most intense corner of the dark triad and the one most closely linked to criminal activity. If narcissism is about image and Machiavellianism is about strategy, psychopathy is about impulse and absence, specifically the absence of empathy, guilt, or emotional depth. It's defined by low empathy, high impulsivity, and a persistent disregard for others. People who score high in psychopathy don't just break the rules, they often struggle to even see them. Psychopathic individuals experience feelings differently, if at all, and that underdeveloped emotional landscape gives them a few notable traits: incredible stress tolerance, very little remorse, and a chilling ability to detach from the consequences of their actions. Because they're not weighed down by guilt and fear, they often seek extreme stimulation, whether that's risky sex, violent situations, dangerous drugs, or high-stakes financial gambles. That drive for intensity combined with emotional detachment fuels volatility and frequent interpersonal conflict. Not everyone who scores high here is a movie villain. While psychopathy is indeed the trait most commonly associated with criminality, it can also appear in people who are simply highly resilient under pressure or unflinching in chaotic environments. In certain contexts, like emergency medicine, special operations, or high-stakes finance, those traits are assets. So if you scored high here, the key is not to panic. It's perspective. It's always perspective. The same qualities that make you fearless can also make you reckless or destructive, but only if they're left unchecked. So, if you saw yourself in any of these dark triad traits, just take a deep breath. You are not a supervillain. You're also definitely not alone. If these traits were so rare, psychologists wouldn't have built entire careers studying them, and you wouldn't be here watching this. The truth is, the traits exist on a spectrum. Most of us have some traces of them, and we're not out here masterminding Ponzi schemes. What matters is what you do with the knowledge. So, here's how to turn self-awareness into something that actually helps you grow. First, get curious about whichever trait you scored high in. What triggers that pattern of behavior? How does it show up in real life? The more you understand it, the faster you'll spot it so you can pause long enough to transform it. You can do this by reflecting instead of reacting. You can ask yourself, how does this trait shape my relationships and decisions? That pause for reflection can turn unconscious habits into conscious choices, and conscious choices are where real change begins. There are also therapists who specialize in these traits, and yes, I promise you they have seen worse. Those therapists can teach you how to regulate your emotions, grow your empathy, and understand other perspectives. This is all the stuff that helps transform those me-first impulses into we-focused behavior. Also, lying is a very common thread in dark triad behavior, so if you find yourself lying, start challenging yourself to be open and transparent, especially when it feels awkward or uncomfortable. That's the time when it matters most. Honesty builds trust, and trust is often the bridge between manipulation and meaningful connection. And traits like competitiveness or a craving for admiration, those don't have to vanish. You can channel them into collaborative goals where you build things that serve more than just yourself. And you can pursue ambitions that lift others up alongside you. At the end of the day, the dark triad is not your destiny. It's just information. A map of tendencies that you can shape, redirect, and refine. Awareness is always the first step, and how you choose to use that awareness is entirely up to you. So maybe you have a little darkness in you. So what? That's human. The real story is what you do with it next. For even more psychology, personality tests, and self-discovery, make sure to subscribe to this channel. And I will see you next time. Have you ever blurted out something or reacted a little too strongly and thought, whoa, where did that come from? Welcome to the shadow zone. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the unconscious side of your personality. All the parts of yourself that you reject or hide, often because you think they're bad or unacceptable. It's basically everything that you've stuffed into the emotional closet. Fears, impulses, insecurities, even But hey, this isn't some dark, dramatic doom spiral. We're here to turn on the flashlight and explore the shadow together. Think of this as an inner excavation without the emotional hangover. Self-discovery served in bites. This video is your guide to meeting your shadow self through a series of interactive questions, examples, and aha moments. We will explore what's lurking just beneath your carefully curated surface and what it might be trying to teach you. This is basically you getting to know you better. Picture your mind as an iceberg. What people see, your opinions, your outfits, your killer playlist, that's just the tip. But beneath the surface, that is the unconscious. Raw, unfiltered, and often unexplored. That is where the shadow lives. So, if you are ready to meet the part of yourself that throws emotional tantrums when no one's watching or quietly craves attention but pretends it doesn't, I suggest you grab a notebook and get comfy and ready to dig in. Let's get started by turning inward. Flashlight in hand, detective hat on. These first questions are designed to help you spot the parts of yourself you might be tucking away in the back of the mental closet. The feelings you shove down, the traits you pretend you don't have, the weird little gremlins you hope no one else notices. Yep, those. Think of this part as pulling back the mask you wear for the world and getting curious, getting really curious about what's underneath. There's no rush here. You can pause the video, write freely, and please, 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 pretty please resist the urge to edit yourself. No one is grading this. And also, if you just want to follow along and answer mentally, that works too. But the first question I would like to ask you is, what is something you've been avoiding or afraid to face about yourself or your life? It could be a feeling, a decision, that unopened text you've been ghosting for a month. So tell me, what is something that you have been avoiding or afraid to face about yourself or your life? What have you been afraid to face? We all have something, right? It's very good that you could identify it. And what emotions do you avoid like the plague? Anger, sadness, feeling needy, vulnerability. Which emotions are you just avoiding like the plague? Okay, and what is one thing about you that you really don't want people to know? Could be a secret habit, a regret, a part of your personality you hope just flies under the radar. One thing, just one that you really hope people don't know. You really don't want them to know. Growing up, what traits did you learn were bad speaking up, wanting attention. When you were growing up, the traits that you learned were bad, 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 bad. Too much. We're getting somewhere. When do you notice yourself pretending or people pleasing instead of being real? Work meetings, dating apps, family dinners. When are you a people pleaser? This is good work. So let's break it down now, shall we? Those questions were designed to shine a light on your feelings and aspects that you have pushed so hard, crammed down into your psychological basement. The ones that you have labeled with a big Sharpie. Not allowed. Do not open. Never open. In Jungian terms, that collection of repressed bits. That's your shadow. Over time, most of us create a very polished version of ourselves, a persona that wins approval. But what happens to all the parts that don't make the cut? Where do those go? What do those be? Contrary to popular belief, they don't disappear. They simmer. They plot. They sometimes show up uninvited at the worst possible moments. For example, let's say you avoid conflict like it's a cursed to-do list. You may have learned early on that anger equals bad, so you quietly buried it. Except anyone with repressed anger knows it doesn't politely stay buried. It finds sneaky exits, passive aggression, road rage, a full-on temper tantrum when you can't find your phone. Does this sound familiar? Or maybe you wrote, "I hate feeling needy," and then you realize you never ask for help. That could point to the shadow belief that if you need support, you're weak. And if that belief's been running the show from the shadows, it's probably exhausting you. But there is good news. The moment you spot it, you take away some of its power. Take it back. Take that power back. Okay, so now that you're aware of this side of you, what do you do with it? First, give that hidden part of yourself a little compassion. You learn to tuck it away for a reason. It feels like it's protecting you. And second, ask yourself where that belief came from, and if it's actually still serving you. Do you know where that belief came from? Is it actually still serving you? Third, try something tiny and brave. Let someone know you're overwhelmed. Set one boundary. Just one, try for two. Cry in the shower, and don't apologize for it. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps eventually lead to a big integration. And I also have a side mission for you, should you choose to accept it. Take a breath and read what you wrote, or reflect on what just came up for you right now. Was there anything that surprised you? Did you spot a part of yourself that you usually ignore or judge? If you feel safe to share, please drop a little insight in the comments. Something like, "I just just realized I pretend to be fine way too often. It might sound small, but it's massive. And odds are someone else is going to see it and say, hey, me too. And also, congratulations. Seriously, nice work. You've taken a giant step by being willing to look at yourself on a deeper level. That's the hardest part. Seriously, gold star. Are you ready to keep going? I love to hear it. Let's see what your shadow thinks about everyone else. Because we've looked inward, and now it's time to look outward. Here's a fun twist. Sometimes the things and people that trigger us aren't random. They're mirrors. In Jung speak, it's called projection. When we see in others what we have unconsciously disowned in ourselves. Think of it like your shadow going, hey, I know that trait. I'm just not allowed to have it, so let's yell at someone who does. See it all the time, right? Are you ready to test your inner mirror? Grab your notebook again, and let's try these next questions. Ready? Who is someone you cannot stand, and why? Could be a celebrity, a boss, an old friend, someone who chews too loud. Right, write it down or think it. Someone you just can't stand. Yeah. Yikes. Alright, next question. What traits in others make you instantly judge or roll your eyes? Think laziness, arrogance, neediness, being too loud, too quiet. Do something. Write it down or think it. I got it. Alright. And who do you envy? Even a little. Who are you envious of? It's okay, the list can be long, but let's just start with one person. Envious. Very good. What exactly do they have or do that stirs that feeling up in you? And who do you secretly admire or put on a pedestal? There's gotta be someone. Admit it. This is you with yourself right now, so it's totally okay to be vulnerable. Alright? Who do you put on a pedestal? Good. What qualities do they have that make you think, oh, I wish I was like that? Which qualities? Brilliant. We got somewhere again. We're cruising. We are finding our shadow. Yeah. Are you ready for the truth juice? Projection isn't just about negativity. It's about recognizing parts of yourself you've lost touch with. Let's say arrogant people make your blood boil. It's possible, just possible, that deep down you've been taught to always stay humble, never shine too bright, or never ask for attention. Your shadow might still crave a little spotlight, but since you've exiled that desire, it comes out as judgment when someone else takes up space. And boom, instant irritation. Or maybe you envy people bright parts of yourself that got tucked away because they felt too bold, too weird, or too risky to show. But you still recognize them. That's why they spark envy, or admiration, or a low-key identity crisis. As Jung would put it, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Translation: your haters are low-key guiding you back to your unclaimed self. Alright, cool. So, what the fuck do you do with all of this anyway? Next time you're triggered by someone's vibe, hit pause. Ask, could this trait live in me somewhere? Is it something I've rejected, buried, or secretly wish I could express? This doesn't mean that you are that person, only that they're tapping on a nerve. And those nerves, always worth exploring. On the flip side, if you admire someone deeply, ask yourself, how can I embody more of that? If you love how bold or expressive someone is, maybe it's time to test drive that energy. Take a baby step. Post something honest. Wear the thing. Say the thought. Let the golden shadow peek out. And then take this mini mission, Cosmic Sleeper Agent. Pick one person, just one, who triggers you or inspires you, and reflect on what they might be reflecting back to you. Then if you're feeling brave, drop it in the comments. I always get annoyed by confident people. Maybe I'm scared of being seen. That is shadow work in action. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's wild how quickly things start clicking when you get curious instead of reactive, isn't it? And the good news is, we ain't stopping. We are going to keep going because we've got more layers to peel back, peel back, peel back. And next up is emotional overreactions, weird patterns, and the moments your shadow grabs the wheel without asking. So buckle up and hold on to your hats because here we go. Have you ever had a reaction that felt way too big for the situation? Like someone made a tiny comment and suddenly you found yourself spiraling into a full-blown meltdown, silent treatment, or inner monologue worthy of an Oscar. Congratulations. That was likely your shadow taking the wheel. We are about to zero in on emotional triggers and recurring patterns. The places where your shadow doesn't whisper, it yells. These questions will help you track where your unconscious might be running the show. Are you ready? When is the last time you totally overreacted to something small? Tell me, what happened? And what did it really stir up? Overreacted. Something really small. Which emotional triggers hit you like a truck? Criticism, rejection, being ignored, feeling left out. I want you to get really specific. So which emotional triggers just send you out? Very good. Which life pattern keeps looping, 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 like a bad sequel? Toxic friendships, quitting right before success, always being the fixer. There tends to be those patterns that repeat again and again and again and again and again. So let's shine the light on those two. What kind of feedback makes you instantly defensive? If someone gives you advice, let's say, what makes you puff up your fur and fluff your tail out like that classic cartoon cat pose? And what are you afraid they're actually seeing in you? What are you afraid they're actually seeing in you? What do you sabotage and why? Think procrastination, ghosting, overthinking, picking fights you didn't need to start. What do you sabotage and why? Do you sabotage? Have you noticed yourself sabotaging anything more specific? Wow, thank you for going there, and thank you so much for continuing to reflect and share. Here's the deal. Our triggers are like breadcrumbs that lead straight to the shadow. When your emotional response doesn't match the moment, chances are you're not just reacting to now, you're reacting to then. Old pain, old programming, old beliefs. Say someone gives you gentle feedback, and suddenly you feel attacked, unworthy, and 1 inch tall. That could trace back to a childhood moment where being wrong meant being punished or unloved. So now, even when the older version of you hears, "You could improve this," it feels like you're not enough. Cue the shutdown, right? Or maybe you keep getting close, so close to something good, a relationship, a career move, and then boom, you self-destruct. Pro tip, that's not laziness, that's fear in disguise. Your shadow might hold a belief like, "I don't deserve this," or "If I try, I might fail." So it hits the brakes before you even get out of the driveway. Defensiveness, sabotage, overreactions, they're not character flaws, they're messages. Your shadow isn't trying to ruin your life, it's trying to protect you. It just memorized some outdated tactics along the way. So the next time a trigger hits, don't judge it, track it. Ask yourself, what is the real emotion underneath this reaction? Where did I learn to fear this feeling? Is this story still true or just familiar? Then try to do something differently. If you want to disappear after criticism, try staying. If your instinct is to people please, try telling the truth kindly. Every time you respond with awareness, you invite the shadow into the light. Now, I want you to look back at a moment where you overreacted. Do you know the deeper story your shadow was trying to tell you? If you feel called to, share your reflection in the comments. Something like, "I realized I panic when people pull away because it reminds me of how I felt as a kid." That kind of honesty cracks things, cracks it wide open for you and for anyone else reading them. You're doing big work here. Seriously. This is the part where most people tap out, and you're leaning in. So let's keep going. Yeah? What do you do with all of this insight? And how do you turn your shadow from a saboteur into a secret ally? Because you've done the hardest part. You looked at what you hide, what you project, and where you spiral. Shadow work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about recognizing the parts you've exiled and inviting them back to the table. Even the loud ones, and especially the messy ones. Because guess what? The shadow isn't just a dumping ground for shame and insecurity. It's also where your power, creativity, and authenticity have been hiding, waiting for permission. I have some integration questions for you, the kind that will gently move you from insight to action. So, feel free to answer them in a journal or in your mind. Ready? What strengths or gifts have you buried because you were told they were too much, not practical, or weird? Okay. What compliments do you constantly reject or downplay? Hint, they might actually be true. But which ones? Okay. What negative trait are you ashamed of that might also be a hidden superpower? For example, stubbornness is resilience, sensitivity, empathy, jealousy is unspoken desire. So what might actually be your hidden superpower? Mm-hmm. All right. What's one thing you could do this week to express a part of yourself that you usually hide? For example, saying what you think, asking for help, wearing that outfit, saying no. Expressing a part of yourself you usually hide. Beautiful. Yes, I hope you do it. Excellent work. We are really getting somewhere. Do you smell that? It smells like progress. So, what does integration actually look like? It's not a dramatic breakthrough or a glowing halo over your head. It's much more subtle than that. Integration looks like speaking up when you used to stay silent, letting yourself cry without apologizing, owning your ambition, your creativity, your weird sense of humor without shrinking, asking for what you need and not immediately feeling guilty about it. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming someone more whole. Because here's the wild thing. The traits that you've rejected the hardest might be exactly what you need to live more fully. When you stop wasting energy hiding them, you gain access to everything they were blocking. Confidence, clarity, connection. Not so bad, right? But just so you know, shadow work, it never ends. You're going to keep discovering new layers. You will continue to face parts of yourself most people spend their whole life avoiding. But now you've got tools. When a trigger shows up, you'll pause instead of panic. When envy flares, you'll dig into what it's pointing to. When you catch yourself shrinking, you'll remember that part of you has a place. Whether you've uncovered buried feelings, spotted a few spicy projections, or finally made peace with your inner chaos gremlins, you've taken real steps towards self-awareness and integration. That is the work. It's not fixing, it's not performing, it's just honestly meeting yourself. So, keep journaling, keep observing, and when in doubt, come back to this question. What part of me is trying to be seen right now? And what is one insight from this whole process that hit home the hardest? What's one action you're willing to take this week to honor it? Drop it in the comments. Whatever it is, you're not just saying it. By sharing it, you are practicing integration in real time. And hey, if this video helped you feel more human, more seen, or just a little less alone in your inner chaos, please share it with someone who's ready to go deep. And let me know if there's anything that you're interested in exploring next. Shadow work is not about perfection. It's about wholeness.